Welcome to the Cybersecurity Competition Federation show. I'm Dan Manson. I teach computer information systems at Cal Poly Pomona and serve as principal investigator for a National Science Foundation grant to help form an umbrella organization over cybersecurity competitions. The Cybersecurity Competition Federation can support the development of skill at a large scale by bringing cybersecurity competitions under an umbrella organization, which will help players of all ages and skill levels identify a point of entry into a continuum of cybersecurity competition experiences. With a focus on communication and promotion, the CCF maintains the autonomy of competition creators, supports their business models, and does not interfere with their sponsorship or funding sources. Last weekend produced winners in two major collegiate cybersecurity competitions. Cybersecurity Awareness Week, CSAW, the largest student-run cybersecurity event in the nation, concluded another successful year at New York Polytechnic School of Engineering in Brooklyn, New York, with Carnegie Mellon's PPP team edging out Dos Pueblos High School's 1064 Seabridge team from Goleta, California. The brand new Collegiate Pen Testing Competition, CPTC, completed a successful first year with University of Buffalo taking first place, RIT second, and Syracuse University third. National Cyber League regular season Game 2 is now in the books. Overall NCL Game 2 stats are shown here. As you can see, about half the players captured flags with an overall accuracy rate of 49%. Top 3 player scores are also shown. Last weekend saw round 1 of the 2015-2016 Cyber Patriot season. 3,300 teams are playing this year, up 50% from last year and double the number of teams from 2 years ago. Unofficial scores from last weekend show strong performances from teams across the country. The following graphs show many perfect scores in the open, all-service, and middle school divisions. With us today through Skype to discuss round 1 is Ron Werner. Ron is Director of Cybersecurity Studies at Bellevue University and was the 2014 AFA Cyber Patriot Mentor of the Year. Welcome, Ron, to the CyberFed show.
Well, welcome to you. Great to be on. Thanks for having me.
How was round 1 for you?
It was fantastic. Great learning experience for the students. They've really learned what they don't know and how much more they need to learn through it. Great opportunity for the kids to get hands-on on the technologies.
Yeah, I think it's super encouraging. Not only are there more schools playing now, but there's more teams per school. I think it's very encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we're now seeing different levels of teams. The experienced kids are a varsity, if you will. We have a junior varsity. Even one of the schools I'm at now has an all-female team who kicked butt, if I can say, particularly compared to the boys. So some fun challenges going on there.
We like to say this is truly a co-ed team competition sport. So the variety you can have is fantastic. You can have all boys, all girls, mixed teams, and there's a lot to be said on having a mixed team. There are strengths that both boys and girls can bring to this competition.
Right, and what I'm seeing too is in some of the more disadvantaged types of schools are now gaining the teams and doing quite well, to where you just need an access to a computer. It doesn't really make a difference your background. Just willingness to learn, that curiosity to get hands deep, hands-on, knee-deep into the different competitions. What did you think was the most challenging thing for your teams as part of this competition?
So it was a fascinating round 1, especially for the open division and the all-service division. They had 2 images. They had the Ubuntu image and they had the Windows 7 image. And on the one hand, I thought, well, this is something everyone's seen before, so it's not going to be that hard. And there's some great training materials out on the website. I'm sure that you're taking advantage of them when you mentor. But it seemed that it was really hard for teams to get those last points.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the teams that we saw compete on Saturday, they were used to getting a perfect score in round 1, and they didn't. The first hour, they would get up to be almost there, and they couldn't get that last Ubuntu or that last Windows vulnerability.
What we saw on my end, there was a team who got there, and I like with the scoring engine how you can actually chart and measure over time where the students are at. And you'll almost always see some type of a plateau they hit. Sometimes it's that period where they're installing updates or they just can't find that last one. One of the teams, they just didn't delete one of the users. It was something that simple that they overlooked. So what we're doing is trying to encourage another set of eyes to go back through. Don't just assume that you've hit all of the easy things, because maybe you missed one. Do you see a lot of correlation between what we do with cyber patriot competitions and computer gaming? I see a lot of kids who are really into the gaming,
Yeah.
and they almost take that approach. But do you see something similar?
Yeah. You know, in either informal gaming or in esports specifically, we talk about esports quite a bit. You see one of two models, either an organic growth that you can kind of see in Cyber Patriot, where there's a few interested parties and it's student driven, right? And they'll kind of self-assemble and then people will assemble around them. Or you see the formal models where there's formal teams and then there's the coach and the mentor and the analyst, and they put together that kind of same atmosphere. And it's highly successful, absolutely.
So the kids that are playing, do you think that they are learning to address this like a sport? Are they learning to train like an athlete? Or do they put in that same commitment that if they were playing soccer or baseball or basketball?
They are now seeing that need. I tell the students homework begins once you graduate, and they're seeing that it's not just something they can come after school 1 hour a week. They need to be working on it on their own and developing their own set of questions, their own checklist, their own toolkit, if you will. But it really needs to be driven as much by the student participant, just like any type of activity. The more you practice, the better you get. But until you see the need, sometimes what I saw with this competition, some of the students didn't see the need to put in that extra time. It's like all of a sudden you play your first football game, fourth quarter, you're sitting there, you're just winded, can't move. That's kind of what I saw with this competition. And I'm seeing a lot more students now taking it more seriously the week after as we're going through practices, that in order to compete successfully, and it has that competitive edge, like a baseball game or a football or basketball now, where you need to practice off hours if you want to get good.
So the NFL has had a PSA going for some time now. They call it Play 60. And they talk about all the kids that get involved early and treat themselves as athletes from a very young age. I think for Cyber Patriot, we'll get to the point where we say play 6 hours. Play the whole time in the competition,
Right.
and take advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's healthy. Not only is sport fundamental to us as a species, and in terms of not only it being play and developing skill in that kind of safe structure, but you get the group social dynamics out of it, and you learn how to work not only as an individual in a group, but as a group with another group, whether that that's a competition or whatever that structure might be for that type of game. And what I've always said about things like Cyber Patriot is it takes that base sports model all the way back from the Greeks and really adds this new dimension to it, that it is directly preparing you to be a better citizen, which really speaks, I think, to that Greek spirit of what the sports were really about to begin with. A lot of the philosophy was that if you weren't developed physically, that you weren't able to fulfill your full obligation as a citizen. It wasn't just an intellectual endeavor. And so with traditional sports, we see the equation being unbalanced towards the physical side, but not necessarily the development of the intellectual side. Whereas with Cyber Patriot, or games like this, I see it being much more equal as it was intended to be, where, I've said this before, Dan, even if you don't want to be a cybersecurity professional, within the next 5-10 years, whenever you're entering that workforce, you're not getting away from technology. It's inescapable. So understanding some of the fundamental operational rules, if we will, and how to do things in a cyber safe way is to your benefit.
I got one quick question for you. How do we get more fans associated with competitions? I actually invited a number of the parents to come in and watch their kids compete so they can better understand what is this Cyber Patriot thing that my kid is now doing on Saturdays.
I think that's a wonderful idea, because one of the challenges in this, as you know, is that the players get really into it, but the coaches stand around, and parents have a hard time seeing it. I would love to see us develop to the point where we can have the parents, the coaches, be talking to each other, be watching the scores, be interpreting the scores, be rooting for their kids, and really feel engaged during the competition.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's two things. We need to be able to visualize what's going on in a really tangible, ongoing, dynamic way, and we need some personalities. This is the exact same problem that professional bowling had about a decade ago, is that nobody watched bowling. Even though bowling is a sport, it's highly technical, mechanically, it's super technical. It's not easy to do the exact same thing, repeatedly, because the environmental conditions change. And I'm a bowling nerd, so I'm not going to go too deep on it, but it's not easy. But it's just like Cyber Patriot, like you were saying. The big thing is, if you're a voyeur of it, what you see are people just standing around, because what the actual player's doing is opaque. There's no visualization for it. But when bowling started to develop some characters, some personalities that were a little controversial, all of a sudden people started watching.
And I think one of the goals as we go into the future is to try and open up the game a little bit. Try and make it a little bit more transparent. Try to let an audience know what the kids are trying to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe on the field cameras, like we see in other sports.
Thank you, Ron. We really appreciate your time today. We really admire you for everything that you're doing for Cyber Patriot, and we're looking forward to staying in touch with you throughout the season.
Jason and Dan, it's been awesome talking with you, and for all the Cyber Patriot and other competition competitors, best of luck to you. Go out there, be smart, and be safe.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you.
07.
If you have a competition you would like us to cover in a future show, please contact us at cyberfed.org. I'm Dan Manson. See you next week.